Heart of an hello. This is Shepard. Really been enjoying the Shagaru fight. I've worked out a insect glaive run, but I wasn't very happy with it. And so then I decided to try hammer, and even though this one is basically like a cheese crust filled pizza from Pizza Hut with extra cheese, I still think it's okay because, you know, there's barely any Courage Hammer videos out there, let alone any against Shagaru. So I think it's okay. Hammer I feel like still needs like a little love. I'm anticipating a title update that's going to give it a little extra damage one way or another. The beginning here doesn't start great, but then we start getting the high gear in the sense that we turn into a mozzarella stick. So Shagaru, relatively weak to KO, and this hammer is actually pretty nice. Gasm Gorm has, I think it's like minus 20% affinity, but because we're going to get inflicted with the virus, that's like a bonus 20% affinity. So we end up, I think, at like 90%, more or less, in terms of like our total affinity once we've got like weakness exploit and everything else like that going on. If you're going for a cheese run, this is probably the best possible spawn. It's pretty rare, though. I've only seen it, like, maybe 1 times out of 10 does it show up. He's normally in the top camp. If he's not in the top camp, or the very top shrine, he's near the tower. So I just got kind of lucky this time. I didn't rush to do, like, a really good attack earlier. On his mountable state. I was hoping I'd be able to keep that third wire bug for a bit longer, but I guess it didn't work out. I mean, not that it matters. It's still Espinos doing Espinos things. Somebody said after one of the hot fixes that felt like the goo got nerfed. I can't say that I've really noticed that, although I guess, you know, I can't really say for certain. I don't want people thinking this is going to become like a hammer-only channel. It just, I don't know. I really enjoy playing Courage Hammer. I do think the next video is either going to be Insect Glaive or Sword and Shield. Both of those have a pretty good chance of showing up. That one Wirebug spin move is relatively okay for Element. But actually, it's not bad for KO. The raw damage is really bad. But in terms of like an actual move, like it's really not that bad in terms of like KO status. I'm pretty good on landing my golf swing. Sometimes when you're moving around with it, it's very easy to either end up repositioning in a way that you end up losing your golf swing, or end up repositioning in a way that you lose your big bang. So when he goes into the air like that, he's at some lower amount of health. He only ends up doing that twice before he's dead. I think it's like maybe like 50 or 40%, somewhere around there, it feels like. Which is kind of terrifying for how long we've actually been fighting him for. Just to say, not long at all. Don't have the Valstrax hammer, so I couldn't really test that. I did test the Death Stench hammer, and I think if it weren't for Virus, I would actually possibly like Death Stench more than Gasm Gorm, as crazy as that sounds. Things that take good element, if you're using the spinning bludgeon a lot, actually, just it works out really well. Shagaru, by the way, if you haven't looked at his hit zones, pretty terrible everywhere except for the head. And they designed the fight really well so that it's pretty difficult to hit the head a lot of the times. So it's a really fun fight. When he goes up on his hind legs, safest thing to do is generally just go towards him. I have fought some of them that were like really tiny, and that strat doesn't really work. But for the most part, if the Shagaru was tall enough, you can just like kind of like go under the groin area and you're safe. Everything else is pretty obvious in terms of like positioning and stuff like that. So this is his second time going up in the air. Again, I think this is like maybe around 25%, 30% in terms of his health. With Courage Hammer, if I see him doing that attack and I'm quick enough to respond, I either want to start comboing the back legs and get the third hit ready, or you just like keep sway. Some of the runs I've been doing with Insect Glaive have been trying to do it with TA rules. It goes without saying that dogs help immensely in fighting anything, let alone Shagaru. I don't know that. I saw one really good run, I think by Kuro Neko, that was like around 5 minutes with Insect Glaive. I don't think I'm going to be able to beat that. But if I could get like 6 or 7 without dogs, I might be pretty happy with that. It's interesting that we have all these afflicted monsters, and they keep the earlier fights still really relevant by giving them a lot more life and, in some ways, more attack. But these 5-star monsters are still a lot of fun to fight and still challenging. So it'll be interesting to see like super versions of Shagaru as event quests and stuff like that. Those are going to be... It's going to be a crazy challenge. Say nothing crazy about the build. The only thing that's maybe different from some other builds you'd see with this is I do go for Focus 2. Again, it's a little debatable whether you want to go for Focus 2 or not. I like it, though. I think it's okay. So yeah, just over 6 minutes with Hammer. I'm okay with that. All right, if you haven't already, check me out, twitch.tv/SDShepherd. Stream there pretty much every day. Probably streaming now if you're just seeing this video pop up in your feed. Otherwise, if you haven't picked up the game yet, nexus.gg, down below. Final part, of course, if you're watching the video, you're still liking this, you're not subscribed, please subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything. You get to see more of these videos. And maybe even like and comment. That helps a lot, too. That's it for now. Next video will probably be an actual tutorial and not just a run, so look forward to that. Until next time, this is Shepherd saying good luck. Have a good hunt.